Let's take a look of the overview of the budget groups and screens in the second half of the fiscal year 24 consolidated application. When I say budget groups, we are really talking about the various grants that can be a component of district's consolidated application. So some grants or budget groups that you may see in the consolidated application include Section 31A Title I like programs, Title I Part A, Title I Part D, the Title II Part A budget group, the Title III Part A English learners group, budget group, the Title III Part A immigrant students budget group, the Title IV Part A budget group, and not listed in this demonstration is the Title I Part C budget group and the Title V budget group. Let's come back up for this demonstration to the Title I Part A budget group. Depending on your grant and your funding source, you may have 5 screens or 7 screens in a budget group. The determining factor is if you are going to have school level budgets or grant member budgets or consortium member budgets. And that's what you will get 2 extra screens. So let's go ahead and jump right in and take a look at the budget summary screen. So when you first go in a budget summary screen, you're going to want to check the top, as the budget summary screens will look different or looks very similar from budget group to budget group or funding source to funding source. So here at the top, it tells you budget summary for the funding source or the grant, Title I Part A. The next thing you'll notice as we do an overview of this screen is there's going to be 3 sections. There's a funding source section, the budget areas summary, and contact information. Let's start off reviewing the funding source. So at the top of the funding source section, you will see that the important grant information is right at the top, just like it was in MEGS. So it tells you the name of the grant, Title I Part A, Improving Basic Programs, and then it tells you some key information about the grant, the agreement number, program number, the project number, CFDA number, your starting date and ending date of the grant cycle, as well as the fiscal year application you're in. The budget summary table for the district level will look very similar to your grant summary in MEGS. The summary table starts with the first column being function codes. The next 6 columns are the object codes across with the associated costs that are entered into the budget. And lastly, you have your grand total by function code. Please note that when you first enter this budget summary page, these function codes in these rows will not be here until you have started entering budget items in. The bottom part of this section is, again, very similar to what you saw in MEGS Plus previously, including looking at information about the indirect costs, your total accepted amount for the grant, the remaining amount that needs to be budgeted still, allocation available, carryover available, and total availability. What you will notice is the remaining amount to be budgeted will change as you budget in further screens. The next section of the budget summary page is budget areas. Again, we will go over in more detail as we go through the next upcoming videos about specific grants, what types of details you'll see in these budget areas, as it is very unique to each grant and funding source. And lastly is the contact information. This is, again, you saw this previous consolidated applications, and for each grant, we would like to have a business office representative shared as well as the project or program contact person. You should include their names, their phone numbers, and their emails. An important thing to note about the budget summary screen is that this page will continue to have an error as indicated by the exclamation point next to the name of the form until you have finished budgeting everything in the grant and come back and save this page to upload any information pulled from other pages. So please watch for the exclamation point and coming back and visit this page before going on to the next grant or before submission. As we move down this budget group, we see that the next form is called Budget Detail. The Budget Detail screen is a report that details all of the budget items in the entire consolidated application across all funding sources. At this time, we're going to skip exploring this page for the moment, and I will come back to it before we end this video. So let's go to the third form in the Title I Part A group called Budget Items. When you first click on this form, a new budget item will be revealed or visible on the main screen. At this time, I've already started adding some budget items in. So what you see is an expanded secondary budget item list. We can click on one of those budget items to show us the new budget item screen or the budget item screen. The budget item screen is where you will add district level budget items. In the next video, we will demonstrate how to add budget items in both district level and grant member level budgets. When entering budget items on this screen, you can only view one budget item for the grant at a time. Let's go ahead and look at the next screen where you'll be able to view the full list of budget items for a funding source. It is called Flagged Budget Items. The Flagged Budget Item screen is where you will find the list of all of the budget items that have been entered into the previous budget item screen. This summary of budget items are more similarly aligned to what you are used to if you're a veteran reporter in seeing in MEGS Plus on the district level budget detail link. The only difference is instead of the flag status and comments being listed under the budget descriptions, it is now in the first column and second column of this report. This screen will come in handy to ensure that all budget items for the identified funding source determined to be a need during the continuous improvement process by the leadership team has been entered. Additionally, when an application is sent back for modifications, this may be a good screen to determine which budget items need adjustments. As you can see, this flagged budget items is the summary report of the budget items entered and is the district level. You can return to one budget item to modify it or edit it by clicking on the function code hyperlink. And again, you can see this is taking you back to the budget items where it was originally entered. Let's keep moving forward through this budget group. Let's go ahead and move on to the grant member budgets screen. I'm going to click that, and you will see when I click on the navigation slide menu for grant member budgets, a secondary navigation list expands out. This expanded list now displays all the grant members for this funding source. These grant members were previously added in the Add Edit Grant Member screen. For Title I Part A and for Title II and Title IV, when there are transfers, these will be your school buildings. For the Title III English Learner Grant, this will be your consortium members if your district is a consortium lead. For each grant member, you are going to have two components to their building level or consortium member budgets on this expanded navigation list. One component is about adding or deleting budget items for that grant member. You will see that in the down arrow, and we'll go again in more detail about that to demonstrate how to add grant member budget items and or how to delete them in the next video segment called Adding Budget Items. The second component in this expanded navigation list is the grant member budget summary screen. That is accessible by clicking on the hyperlink embedded in the grant member's name on this expanded secondary list. Let me show you that grant member summary now. So from that expanded secondary navigation list, I clicked on Geyer Park Schools grant member budget summary hyperlink. Again, you will see this is a simplified version of the grant member budget summary, similar to that district level budget summary. You'll see at the top of this budget summary lists the name of the grant member. It lists the important information about the grant, and then it will have the summary of the budget items that have been added for this grant member by function code, object code, total cost. At the bottom, you will see the total availability is listed. And again, that will be based on your Title I allocations to schools forms that were previously completed in the school level budgets. And then you'll see the availability balance that needs to be continued to be budgeted. Due to the availability balance still being available and not being at a zero, that is why you see the exclamation point error next to this grant member's name. Again, this grant member budget summary, when all budget items have been budgeted, will need to be saved to ensure the data is pulled forward and that the error is removed. Let's go to the next form on in this budget group on the navigational slide menu. The next form is called Grant Member Flagged Budget Items. So again, similar to the grant member budgets, we will see a secondary navigation list open up when clicking on this screen, on this form. So now what we'll do is we'll select one of the grant members to review their flagged budget items. Again, you can see that this screen is very similar to the district level flagged budget item screen that we reviewed a few minutes ago. The only difference is these flagged budget items form will align to a specific grant member budget items that were entered. You will see, just like the grant member budgets button, we get that secondary navigation list, and you click on that school building or the consortium member name, and the hyperlink will take you to the grant members list of entered budget items. On this page, you'll review the entire budget for the building or the consortium member, and you'll see right at the top of the screen, it tells you which entity or building or consortium member we're in, as well as which funding source. On this page, you can review the entire entered budget for the entity. If you need to return to an individual budget item, you can use the hyperlink next to the budget description to navigate to that one to adjust. The last form in this budget group is the attachments page. Let's go there now. Each budget group is going to have an attachments page. This form is set up just like the attachment sections we had in MEGS Plus. Instead of having one additional budget information attachment section, we now have an attachment screen for each funding source. So as you can see from the instructions on this page, you will enter a file name or a title for your attachment. And then you will select your document or drag the file directly into this box where it says drag files here. Again, some of the allowable types of documents that you can upload into NexSys include Word documents, PDFs, JPEGs, Excel spreadsheets, and GIFs format files. Do not forget to hit that save button when you've attached your document. If you need more than one document for the funding source, you need multiple job descriptions or multiple contracts, do not forget to use the add button. Otherwise, you will override your previous attached document. Again, the save button, the add button, the delete button is all up in the right-hand corner of the screen. And as I stated, multiple files can be uploaded into each attachment section. As promised, let's return back for our final form in this budget group, budget detail. As shared earlier, this form or screen is the budget detail for all of the funding sources in the fiscal year 24 consolidated application. It is an overall report that shows the summary of the consolidated application federal grants budgeted expenditures. When you first go into this report, all filters at the top of this budget detail page will be clear. And what that means is all the budget items that are listed are from all of the grant sources in the consolidated app. Title 1A, Title 2, Title 4, Title 1D, Title 1C, and your Title 3s, Title 5. So this is your compiled budgeted expenditures. Using the filters at the top can help you do some sorts across your grants and in your consolidated application. So let's look at a couple of different examples of how this feature in this form may be used. So let's filter first for a private school. You can see when I filter for St. Mary's and hit search, we go from many budget items down to 5. And again, due to no other filters being turned on, these are all of the budget items across the entire consolidated application for St. Mary's Equitable Services. So I cannot tell which budget items are from Title I Part A grant, Title II Part A, or Title IV Part A. So I'd like to show you how you can use multiple, or let me show you first how you can export this file. So up in the top right-hand corner of the results section, there's a little diagonal upward arrow that can export your results. And you can choose if you want an Excel file, an XML file, or a CSV. I'm going to choose Excel. You're going to see it's going to generate a download for me in my web browser. And that export results went ahead and downloaded this spreadsheet showing all of the non-public St. Mary's expenditures across the various grants. I can go ahead and refine my search even farther. So again, I have 5 budget items for St. Mary's. I can go ahead and determine which grant source I would like to filter. And now I can see I have two Title II Part A equitable services budget items for St. Mary's. Now that we've seen how we can use a couple of filters for this budget detail page, I'm going to go ahead and clear all the filters and look at, and go ahead and hit search. And again, look at my many expenditures across all the Consolidated app federal forms and federal grants. Let's go ahead and try one more budget detail search. And this time, the second example we're going to do is start filtering first by a grant member. And so for this grant member, we're going to go ahead and pick Geyer Park and hit search. And what we're going to see is we have a few budget items, exactly 5 budget items for this school building. And now what we can go ahead and do is filter by we can see actually first that it is sorted by function code. So we have 3 compensatory education function code 125s or added needs. And we have 2 community activities, 331s or parent and family and community engagement. So let's go ahead and choose. We can see that when we do funding sources or budget item types, we can look at some transfers here. So transfers from transfer to Title 1A part schools. And we can see that we do have a transfer of budget item type transfer from, let's see, I'm going to do funding source Title 2. And so we see we have a Title II transfer to Title I Part A for Geyer Park School. So we can look at our transfer funds that way as well. All right, so that is one way that you can use that budget detail screen or form. And again, you're going to find that budget detail in each budget group. It links you to the exact same form in every single funding source so that you can do those filters and such in any budget group. Thanks for joining this overview of the budget groups today. So you see how to add budget items and specific context for specific funding sources in the upcoming videos.